Have you ever wondered what happens when you combine the freedom of a bus with the speed of a train? You get something efficient, flexible, cheap, and fast. Its name, a guided busway. Guided busways are some of the most overlooked parts of transport infrastructure, and yet they've been used since the 1980s. But how does a guided busway work, and what does it have that a regular busway doesn't? A guided busway is made up of concrete tracks, shaped with a curb on each side of the track. To travel along these busways, buses have to be modified with horizontal guiding wheels, which make contact with the curbs of the track that allow it to roll along. This not only means drivers don't have to worry about speeding, but they can also go far faster than usual, as the risk of a head on collision with a bus going in the other direction is practically zero. But how do they enter the track in the first place? Metal guide rails enable the guide wheels to align with the curb at entry and exit points from the track onto normal roads, meaning the buses can leave, run along normal suburban roads, and return along the busway to their next destination. Introducing a guided busway to suburban Sydney would link areas currently with insufficient transportation to the city at a fraction of the cost of conventional rail or metro, and with far higher flexibility. With interchanges spread throughout the suburbs, the system would be able to move residents to key locations, connecting areas isolated from council centres. But what's the problem? Areas without adequate transportation infrastructure, like the northern beaches, see daily overcrowding and stress on the transport network, with slow speeds caused by sharing the road with regular traffic, and with less flexibility when accidents occur along their routes. This causes delays, tons of them. With a guided busway, not only are buses able to skip traffic but also allow for much higher frequencies and speed, moving people reliably and quickly, while also enabling buses to avoid very unlikely disruptions through the option of detouring on regular roads. But what new technologies can busways bring that other transportation systems can't? Evidently, quite a range. First and foremost, the transport system is currently seeing an influx of a new fleet of electric buses. It's easy to adapt some of the many buses in the fleet being produced to feature guide wheels, creating an environmentally friendly option for the kinds of buses rostered on busway services. Another technology comes in the form of interactive bus stop information systems that customers can interact with to find next services, plan trips, see maps of stops, and filter departures by their bus route. There are various benefits of guided busways which distinguish them from other modes of transport. They have faster top speeds and are generally not delayed, since traffic doesn't affect them, which improves general commute times across communities. However, when required, buses can exit the busway and drive suburban routes instead, allowing them to serve a greater area. Finally, they have a smaller footprint and are able to be built in areas with not enough available space for conventional rail. Guided busways have been successfully implemented in multiple locations worldwide. The longest guided busway in the world can be found in Cambridge in the UK at over 25 kilometres long. In Adelaide, the O-Bahn is a 12-kilometre long guided busway which has received praise for its positive effect on the efficiency and convenience of the city's bus system. Notable effects that these systems have had include reducing traffic congestion, making bus rides smoother, faster, and more reliable, as well as improving space efficiency and optimizing cost-effective infrastructure. Adelaide's implementation of guided busways serve as an excellent example of the potential of such transport and are a clear indication of why guided busways are worth the investment. There are, however, various geographical challenges with building the guided busway. The most notable challenges include building around terrain and existing developments. It's important to also consider locations of national parks to avoid any disruptions, as well as how access to the busway would be managed. These are some potential corridor types that could suit the application of guided busways along them. Pipelines, like the ones to Prospect Reservoir, have long and usually straight corridors, and transit like the T-Way has already been implemented along them in the past. Furthermore, waterways tend to have plenty of open space around them, and, like in Adelaide, can provide room for public transport. Former railway corridors, such as the Cambridge Railway in the UK, have proven successful in conversions to guided busways, and with corridors like Sydney's former Camden Railway, this could be applied in Sydney too. Finally, the medians of freeways are government owned and can be taken advantage of by implementing guided busways that run through the middle of them. Following consultation with Sydney residents and a prominent urban planner, we've determined two areas in Sydney that would have a guided busway applied best in. The first of these corridors is in the Sutherland Shire, to Bangor and Menai. Within 5 kilometers to the nearest rail lines from Menai, the corridor is crucial in connecting the region. We found that given the rivers that surround it, Menai is incredibly hard to access. Furthermore, as opposed to conventional transport, a guided busway can effectively manage the area's steep terrain. Second of all is the Northern Beaches, which in a survey we produced saw 90% of participants prioritizing it in their top 3 transport project desires. With 260,000 residents and almost a complete lack of public transport, this link is crucial. Indeed, we were informed that the Northern Beaches was incredibly space constrained through both urban development and the coast, making a space efficient mode necessary in the design of future transport corridors. Money-wise, guided busways are less costly than tramways and railways. They require less road service than regular busways, and when compared to projects like the Sydney Metro and the Parramatta Light Rail, are evidently more affordable, costing $724 million. However, the costs involved include the purchase of concrete and the extra cost of fitting buses with guide wheels, alongside the cost of labour and obtaining the required land, which all raise costs. Some of the positive impacts the project has on the environment include the lack of pollution from electric buses, alongside the fact that electric buses make far less noise than regular buses. In addition, guided busways also have a thinner corridor width than practically all public transport corridors, like trains, trams, and even most regular busways. However, there are some negative impacts involved, those being the potential impacts on wildlife, on local waterways, and on the environment, with small amounts of green removal required. There are many positive social impacts that also accompany a guided busway. Not only do they reduce travel times in areas without adequate public transport, but they are also far more cost effective and quicker to construct than train or metro lines. Some of the negative social impacts can also be rectified, with the NIMBY, or Not in My Backyard movement, opposing most public transport. Of course, with a smaller corridor size and quieter transport, there's a lot less to argue over, and while transferring to a guided busway can be hard, it's important to remember that one of the key aspects of a busway is the door-to-door service it provides, eliminating the need for the majority of transfers. Finally, when it comes to politics, there can be some difficulties, namely in acquiring funding, land, and approval from the government. The feasibility of the project weighs on consistent ridership and the need for integration with existing buses and roads to avoid any unforeseen problems. Overall, though, guided busways offer an interesting solution to the urban transportation problems we face in today's world, and perhaps one day could be implemented right here in Sydney.